Hey guys, welcome back to the desk. Today we'll be talking about a case that I am strictly in league with. Sorry, I had to. So this is the pen case or stationery case from a Japanese brand called, it's stylized as an ampersand and the German word for love. I only heard of them recently, and my birthday gift last year to myself was this pen case that I was betting would make for a great everyday carry. So grab a coffee or some matcha and let's chat about it. Entering the world of fountain pens can feel like a steep climb. It's a little bit intimidating, especially when you see all the options out there. Or at least it was for me. So I think it really just comes down to finding something that works for your lifestyle, your budget, and your use case. Today I'm walking you through my top beginner recommendations, all housed in this wonderful case. In a way, it's a review and guide all in one. Full disclosure, I actually ordered this by mistake. They have two kinds of leather. So one is the Tochigi smooth leather, which looks more similar to the traveler's notebook type of leather. And this one, which is their Nume Pebble leather. It has that sort of textured look and feel to it, but it still has the gorgeous shine of well-oiled premium leather that will hopefully withstand the test of time. And honestly, getting the Pebble leather was a happy accident. I really love how the Pebble texture isn't so big. It's quite fine, so you wouldn't really notice it until you picked it up. On top of that, it doesn't show scratches or dents as much as the smooth leather. So some people do like that look, and I personally like that look in my traveler's notebooks. But on my pen case, I actually put a lot of things inside, and while I'm happy that it can fit them all, it does cause the leather to mold to the tools inside. So I found that was more evident in the smooth leather. Think of the rings showing up in a binder, like the plotter or G that I showcased in my last video. You notice there's kind of a dent coming through from the things that are inside, which I'll show you in a bit. And it doesn't bother me so much because of the natural texture of this leather. So yeah, it stays looking pristine even when I'm tossing it in my bag. Now the one I got is not the one with 6 pens. It's the one with 3 pen slots and stationery pockets on the other side. I did talk about the Wuji Kiss Lock pouch in my stationery bag, which mostly houses stationery supplies that I would like to use up in what I call the artsy side of my analog life. So stickers, some washi tape, and the like. But this one houses my everyday carry. This comes with me to the office, to class, and generally everyday planning and note-taking. So I would say this has to be way more functional and able to survive the daily grind compared to my other pen case. I highly recommend checking out the brand, but definitely factor in your own needs first, where you'll use it, and if it makes sense for your workflow. It's not exactly cheap, but I can say that if you have a use case that requires something like this, it's definitely well worth its value. For organization, this is a dream. It's the perfect home for these tools because I get the 3 colors I need and space for flexible stationery on this side. I did notice that when it came, these pockets were quite flat, but they do adjust over time to what you put into them. I suggest not putting too bulky things because this is not garterized. It won't flatten again. The suede material is definitely very premium though. I take comfort in knowing that this lining is high quality enough to protect my supplies, and the tactility of it is just quite nice. Despite the small footprint and it being incredibly lightweight compared to most other leather products, it fits so much and doesn't get too bulky. I'll show you what's in here. This is a cute pink Rhodia pad that I got. I always have a tiny Rhodia pad for monthly ink swatches, which I haven't really talked about my system yet, but I'll get around to. These are perforated, so I tear them out when I'm done using them. You can see that one already was torn when I was testing to check if it had perforations. This has all of its leaves in it, and it was right inside the pen case as you saw. On this side, I have a mechanical pencil, a brush pen, of course, because I'm bound to make mistakes, tiny correction tape, of course, a tiny deco rush, in a design that I'm sure I won't get sick of running through any and every planner. It's the one with trees. And finally, I have a Pilot Kakuno in such a cheerful white and yellow colorway. I will talk about this at the end of my video because now it's time to run you through my beginner fountain pen recommendations. So the first recommendation I have for beginners who want to try fountain pens but are afraid that it would be too high maintenance or even that they'd run out of ink while they're out and about. I'm pretty sure you've seen this in fountain pen videos. This is the TWSBI Eco. Mine is in transparent yellow and it's in a fine nib. The basics of fountain pens is that they each have different nib sizes, just like pens have different widths, and you will almost always see the nib size indicated on the fountain pen. Anyway, I hope you can see somehow, but there's a little F written on the nib there. I can't really quite see the preview, but I hope it captures it. And I have written it on myself in the process. Yes, so if you see ink stains on my hands, don't blame the fountain pen. It's probably because I did something that no human would do, which caused the ink to get on my hands. It's not the fault of the pen there. Nibs generally come in extra fine, medium, and broad. Sometimes you will see 1.1 or 1.5 stub nibs, and those are quite thick, usually used for calligraphy, if you would like to use headers. This was actually my first fountain pen, which is why I feel very confident recommending it to beginners. You can say that it is the pen that pen-abled me and got me into the hobby, which is why I'm giving these recommendations so I can hopefully give you some insight as to what would work for you before you purchase all the cute colors out there. Okay, back to the TWSBI Eco. This is what's called a demonstrator pen, where the entire body or barrel of the pen is actually where the ink is stored. Open up the pen like this, dip it into a bottle of ink, and then twist the bottom part in order to pull up the ink into the barrel. Isn't it so satisfying to look at, especially if you have different colored inks? It's kind of like a tiny lava lamp for your workspace. Beyond the looks, this is really reliable. It's a piston filler, rare at this price point, which means it holds a massive amount of ink. If you're a student or someone who journals pages and pages at a time, this will be your workhorse. You won't be reaching for a refill in the middle of a thought. It's a pen that just works every time you uncap it. TWSBI is a Taiwanese brand which originates from a manufacturer that has over 50 years of experience in manufacturing plastic and metals. So that's probably one of the reasons why this is so reliable. I've had hit or miss experiences with other cult pens, and they would skip, or after some time of not using it, they would hard start. So hard starting is when you try to go right with it and the ink won't flow out. Because fountain pens have nibs, this mechanism can dry out if the cap is not sealed well or the mechanism itself is just not engineered too well. And that's why most fountain pens, and even this one as you noticed, come with twist cap nibs. That's to maintain the seal. And despite mixing plastic and metal in this pen, they've done it well enough that it's durable and sturdy. I have heard of some TWSBIs cracking, but this has been with me for 4 years now, and it's fine. And I'm not exactly easy on my materials. Over time, I found that I enjoyed finer writing, and I find that the fines and extra fines on TWSBI are still thicker than Japanese fines. That's another thing to note. The widths of nib sizes are not at all uniform across brands. So that's why I ended up picking up this extra fine TWSBI nib. I believe this is the smoke and rose gold colorway. That's the other fun thing about these TWSBIs. They come in every color you can imagine. You'll have so much variety to choose from. Next is another incredibly reliable brand, the German brand Kaweco. This is the Kaweco AL Sport, which stands for aluminum, and the colorway Olivine. It's this gorgeous olive green in an aluminum metal body. And I got this gold cap, so this slides right off. Some people like that industrial look, but I do like the functionality and the look of having the little cap on. The body is an octagon, so once you put it on there, it's quite secure. I think it's stable enough not to mistakenly fall off just by itself. Like the TWSBI, this unscrews. In a bit, I'll talk about why the color of this is different from its body. The original comes with the same metallic green all the way through. But first, I will mention why I love this pen. This is my pick for ultimate portability. It's what I call beat-upable. The sports usually come in plastic body, I think acrylic, and you can throw it in your bag, drop it in your pocket with keys, and it develops character over time. So yes, it's not impervious to scratches, but it's so lightweight, it's so portable, and once you post it, which is sticking the butt of the pen back into its cap, it has such a good balance. The weight, I don't know, for me, just makes writing with this a joy. This is in extra fine. As I noted earlier, I did develop a love for extra fine, and yeah, I love this thing doesn't skip, which is when you write in one line or write quickly and it develops gaps, so you don't see that here. This is the usual fountain pen test where you go in multiple directions quickly and it does not skip and it feels really smooth. Some people don't like it for its size, but some people love it for that, so take your pick. Just like the TWSBIs, the color range for these Kaweco sports are endless. If you have a favorite color or you're interested in seeing what's on offer, you can readily go to their website. One tip I don't see mentioned often is the fact that you can buy replacement nib units. Just this part. Okay, I made more of a mess. Like I said, normal humans would not do that and expect their hands to stay clean. I just don't mind. For me, I like the plastic grip. I find that the metal can get a bit slippery for me. I get hand cramps when I grip too hard, and when it's slippery, I end up gripping too hard. I really like this plastic body, which is why, despite it not looking aesthetically too pleasing, I swapped it out. My main purpose for swapping it out was actually because I gravitated towards extra fine nibs on Western brands like Kaweco because they are much thicker than the Japanese fines. I originally bought this olive in medium, and I found that was just too broad for me, especially because for the longest time, I had this in my traveler's passport notebook, and it's about a little wider than this. With the size of the paper, I really needed something more precise, and thus I got an extra fine. So just a pro tip for people who have Kawecos or are interested in getting these but don't necessarily want an entirely new pen, you can just get one pen and then buy a replacement nib. Okay, that's our second pen down. And the third pen is not this one, but I will show it to you anyway. This is my wonderful Sailor Dragon Palace. I think, yeah, that's the name of the colorway. It's a 14 karat gold nib in medium fine. And Sailor has a very distinct way of making their nibs such that it feels like you're writing with a pencil. When you hear feedback when people are talking about fountain pens, it means that it feels a little bit scratchy. But in the case of Sailor, they've been able to take that scratchy feeling and make it smooth. Think of writing with a pencil. You know that the graphite is touching the paper, but it's not in a way that's grating or uncomfortable. And I've come to like it quite a bit. So I really love this Sailor of mine. I would say it's one of my most favorite pens, but I'm not recommending it for beginners because it's on the pricier side. Okay, so back to the third recommendation I had for beginners would be this one, the Happy Pilot Kakuno that I talked about at the start of the video. If you're just getting into a hobby, it's important to eliminate as much friction as you can. And if you find the act of unscrewing a cap every time you want to jot down a grocery list or a simple note to be a chore, this is your best friend. Like you saw, it's a simple snap cap. So very fast, very satisfying. This nib has a tiny little smiley face just to tell you which way is up. It's adorable. I really like this. Another super reliable pen. Also comes in multiple nib widths, and of course, you guessed it, the one I have right now is extra fine. You might notice that this extra fine is much thinner than this one. This was the Kaweco extra fine, and now this is the most unscientific way to show you. This is the Japanese or Pilot brand extra fine. You notice how much thinner that is? I think this is a 0.3 or 0.4 millimeter line, whereas the Kakuno is likely 0.5 or even wider for their extra fine, right? Another happy, great pen. The other thing about the Kakuno is its body is octagonal like the Kaweco, and it's also made of a really sturdy acrylic plastic, and the ink window, or this part, so that you can see how much ink you have, is transparent. It's pretty easy to tell how much ink is left in your pen or why it's not writing, probably because the ink's run out. I learned that the hard way when I was starting out. Okay, those are really the top 3 pens I would recommend for beginners in the fountain pen world. If you are interested in supplementing your journals with different colors of ink, because there are many, it's a huge world with different chemical properties like sheening and shading. I won't get into that in this video, but you don't want to spend so much money and be unhappy or have an unreliable pen to work with, those are the 3 I recommend. Okay, you might have noticed these 2 pens sitting at the top of my desk for the entirety of the video. These are retractable fountain pens. So just like your everyday Clicky pen, but it has that very fine fountain pen nib coming out at the end. This is a total game changer, especially if you're using fountain pens at work and you don't want to have to fiddle with unscrewing or pulling off the cap every single time. If you do leave a pen open for some time, it will dry out. Pilot has been able to engineer a system that seals the nib and protects it from drying out into a Clicky pen. The first one, the original pen, is called the Pilot Vanishing Point, and they have a line called Decimo, which has a slimmer body. So that's the one I have in my hand right now. It also has a gold nib. It's really soft and bouncy when it writes. So it's not like a piece of steel that's kind of unyielding and stiff as you write, which can be fatiguing in long sessions. I really love writing with this gold nib, and of course it's an extra fine again. This is the colorway Ichigo no Mori, or I think Wild Strawberry or Strawberry of the Forest. I got this secondhand. It was my second gold pen after the Sailor. And I only got it after using this guy for about 6-7 months. This is the copycat, of course. When the patent for the design of the Vanishing Point expired, the brand that used to be called Moonman, now called Mahjong, copied it. So I believe in terms of copies, they are one of the best. This is what they call the A1. So if you want to try a Clicky fountain pen at a lower price point with a lot of different color options for the body, this is your best bet. Of course, you won't be getting that gold nib feel, but at the very least, you'll be able to test out if it works well enough for your use. What I like about the A1 is the weight and balance of the pen in my hand. This comes with a steel nib, and I really have no complaints. It's reliable. It just doesn't have the luxurious feel of this guy. So I don't really use this for long writing sessions, but for everyday functional notes, it gets the job done. The A1 is really good. Let me just reload my Liebe Pen Case and prove to you that this thing fits quite a bit. Maybe we can fit this. I think so. I can fit the little traveler's notebook pen case and it'll still close well. The only comment I have on this case is in my version of this case, which I'm not sure is the most recent. I do know one of the versions has a shorter flap and one has a longer one. I find that when I load it up with a lot of things, it shifts a bit to the side and sometimes occasionally snags on the zipper. But if I'm being mindful, it's not really an issue. So for me, it's no problem. The utility, the build quality, and just the general layout and organization of this case is so good. This is the first case I've used on a daily basis for a whole 2 months now. That's never happened with any of the pen cases I've tried before. I'm not really selling anything. I don't get any commissions from them, but I love this case so much and I hope that the brand continues to do well. So yeah, I hope that gave you a good overview of what pens to try. There is also the Lamy Safari. That is an undisputed classic and great for beginners and seasoned fountain pen enthusiasts alike. It's made of the same ABS plastic as Legos, so I would say it's practically indestructible. The clip is really nice. That's my favorite clip, I think, on any fountain pen. The build quality is high enough that the cap seal is excellent. Just like the Kakuno, you don't have to twist it off. Once you uncap it, it's just ready to go. There's a specific kind of magic in finding tools that have been crafted with intention. Whether it's a blade from a mastersmith or the perfect pen case to accompany your fountain pens. But the real magic only happens when those tools meet the page. I hope that this video gave you a good overview of what beginner-friendly fountain pens are out there. For anyone interested in the brand Liebe or picking up the pen case that I have, I hope this gave you a good picture of whether or not it's right for you. With journaling, fountain pens, or any hobby, if you're just starting out, don't worry about perfectionism or aesthetic layouts. Just focus on the feeling of the pen in your hand and the clarity that comes from slowing down. I hope this is the first step to unlock a fun journey of self-expression, creativity, contemplation, and a safe space whenever you put pen to paper. Let me know which pen you've picked up for your first entry. I'd love to welcome you into this small community. See you in the next one.